Welcome back to Evolve. Today, I'm going to be telling you my emotional story of coming home to Ghana. This is an extremely emotional video for me to make. If you haven't seen the first video about my story with Ghana, make sure you watch that first. But this is the second part 2, where I finally made the journey to Africa, to West Africa, to Ghana, to Accra, to Dabala, to meet my granddad's family. So where does this story begin? Well, since the videos on Evolve, reigniting my connection to Africa, 10 years since my grandfather passed away, I felt so disconnected for so long that Africa was something in my past. After my grandfather passed away, I didn't want to have any connection to Ghana, to Africa, because it was so painful. But the videos here on Evolve, the messages, the comments, since the Vato video, since the Ryu video, it was real. I could feel I did not lose my Africanness or my connection. It was just dormant inside me. But thanks to Evolve, it has been reawakened. And finally, the next step, the most important step after that reawakening was actually going to Ghana for the first time. So it happened. I got that visa. I went through that process. And that was a humbling process where, thanks and huge gratitude to my aunt, we're doing some back and forth with the admin. And I thought, hey, this is not like the other countries you go to with a British passport. Boom, visa on arrival stamp. There are a couple of things to go through. But I asked my aunt, come on, why does it have to be so complicated? And she said to me, Hakeem, how do you think it is for Ghanaians when they want to go abroad? And that humbled me straight away there to recognize like my privilege in that moment. But finally seeing that visa, the Ghanaian visa, the flag on my passport meant that this was real. I'm finally going back after having been raised with family from Ghana, the food, the music, the culture, the values, everything in that moment, all coming together on this one day on my flight. You're going home to Ghana. I remember speaking to one of the elders in my family before I left, and it was just a nice, warm conversation. But then when I told him, I'm going back to Ghana for the first time, he told me, like the mood changed completely. And he just looked at me in the eye and said, the mood, silence. What you're about to do is very deep and will have a big spiritual impact for you. It's a very important thing for you to do. So from that moment, I knew already. But then after saying that, from my dear uncle to tell me those words, I felt it in my body, and seeing that visa there, I knew this was about to happen. I knew it's getting real now. There's no going back. I'm about to come and connect with something so deep and like deep down inside me that's been kind of swept under the carpet for so long because it was painful to relive and mourn my grandfather, I guess, in different ways through that. But now, thanks to Evolve, it's ready. The time has come where I need to go back and connect to this country that has had such a deep impact on me. So the roller coaster of emotions was only intensified on the plane, where people just seemed like a party, celebrating coming back to Ghana. People who'd left to Europe, to the US, who were finally coming back proud. They've made their lives across the world, coming back home, the celebration. It felt like a party on the plane. People going around, they were drinking together. They're obviously taking a lot of interest in me and my brother. We look different. Why are you coming to Ghana? Oh, your grandfather is from Ghana. And we were showing them photos and they were getting emotional. We were getting emotional. And I just remember when it landed, there was a guy next to me who just smiled with the woman next to him and just said, we are now home. And I just felt something special. Getting off that plane genuinely did feel like coming home. People looked like what I was used to seeing people look like as a kid. Their attitudes were the same. The positive spirit, but also sternness that, with Ghanaians, sometimes they can appear quite shy and reserved, but at the same time, they got that fire inside if something's wrong. And feeling that all around me, although it was different, it was so similar and comfortable for me too. And then just battling straight away in my brain all of this negative media bombardment of Ghana is dangerous, Africa is dangerous, poverty, disease. Like the amount of people, sometimes, in the UK, I told them, I'm going to Ghana. Oh, be careful. Why? Oh, it's dangerous there. Is it? Because as I got off the plane and interacted and saw people around, of course, it's a new environment, but I didn't feel threatened. So all of that's going through emotion. I'm seeing my family, cousin who was like this big, literal baby a few days after being born for the first time I've seen in like 12 years. And she's the same height as me now, rushing of emotions and just such a cocktail going on of emotions inside me. But finally realizing, wow, I'm here. And that kind of strictness that I had as a kid with my granddad, in that people would just greet us everywhere. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, sir. You know, the yes, please, the no, please that you hear. Politeness is paramount in Ghana. That's for sure. But I'm used to that. That's how I was raised with my granddad. But I got a firm reminder on like my first day where I was trying to book a taxi on my phone. So in the lobby of the accommodation we were staying at, there was a young security worker who saw me on my phone whilst my mum started to walk off. And he said, hey. And he looked at me. I'm thinking, what's this guy talking to me about? And he said, hey, you know your mother loves you. Oh. That was a firm reminder, like, what am I doing? You know, I need to make sure I'm staying next to my mum and being aware and walking with her, not just sitting, booking a taxi on my phone. These firm reminders, doesn't matter what class anyone is in Ghana, there's certain values of respect, or faith, or dignity that they're firm inside the culture. So, yeah, the emotions were huge. Seeing family who look like my granddad. They sound like my granddad. Their attitudes are like my granddad. Maybe not as stern, and they all joke together that their uncle is a very tough and strong man. But seeing his nephews and his nephews' kids was such a special feeling. Because it's not just the physical, it's the mental. When we sat down, these are people I've met for the first time, or I haven't seen since I was a baby, to look them in the eye and them telling me how much it means to them that I've come home to Ghana. And for me, with tears in my eyes, telling them how grateful I am and how special it is for me to be here. And we bonded over my granddad and his teachings and how he helped them when he was younger, and the connections and values. It was such a strange feeling where people I've never met, within seconds sitting down on a table with them, I just felt like I'd known them for my whole life, because the values and the respect and all of that is just there. We are family. And again, going back to that ethnically, right? My blood was not the same as these people's blood, but the love that I felt in that moment with them there, those conversations, of course, were never going to take place because we were family in that moment. And the love, it was just a feeling of completeness to go in Ghana and have that love and warmth from the family that raised me so much with my grandfather's nephews was just so special. And a big shout out to my cousins who are in their 20s, who showed me a bit of Ghana's life for young people. I got a proper insight into how diligent they are, how much they study, what they do in their free time. And one of the favorite, most special moments I will cherish forever, and I need to make sure it happens again soon with the rest of my family, but dancing to Highlife out there in the streets of Accra with the moonlight shining, live bands playing Highlife, and I was just grooving with them. With my grandfather's like great nephew and niece was just so surreal and such one of the most incredible feelings of my life. Because maybe they don't understand how much this means to me. We're just vibing, we're having a good time with the music. But I would hear my granddad talk about this as a kid. I would hear him talk, I'd hear him play the music, but I'd hear him speak about the vibe in Ghana. And suddenly I'm here. All of these emotions constantly going through me, but it was very special indeed. But the real deep moments occurred when we organized with my uncles that, okay, we are going to take you to the village. We are going to take you to Dabala. We knew that's what we came for, right? We knew. And part of us was like, maybe on the first trip, we don't need to go back to the village and see all the family. But deep down, we all knew we have to do it. So we organized that trip. And so much love and gratitude to my uncles, my cousins for organizing this. We took the long road from Accra to Dabala. And oh my God, what a bumpy ride. If you watch till the end, I'm going to speak a bit more about the challenges Ghana is facing, the challenges I faced in Ghana. But for now, let's back to the story. We're on those roads, bumping up and down. And I'm just looking at the continent of Africa. I'm looking at the scenery, the lush nature, getting out of the city and seeing how people are living and piecing together the flashbacks from what Grandad used to tell me as a kid. And imagine the butterflies in my stomach of like, we're going back to the village. Who am I going to meet? Who's going to be there available for us to meet, for my granddad's family? And we first pull up to just outside of Dabala, which was the original village that my grandfather's family originated from. And we pull up there in this minibus. And in this small village by the Volta River, they didn't even know we were coming. But within seconds, this whole big groups of people, right? The elder women there came out. And when they heard that Reggie's family had arrived, instantly I saw tears in their eyes. And we were just, quiet and just, I could see in their eyes tears fill up straight away. And I remember clear as day the first words that one of the aunties there said was, "Today is a very happy day. Today is a very, very, very happy day." And we're there shaking hands and hugging, and we sat down by the chief elder at that time. We walked up from the village, we sat down, everyone's exchanging greetings, and I can just see the faces. I know these people are related to my granddad. I know this is family. We sit together, we cherish those moments, and we walk over to the river to perform the libation. And that was a special moment because they all knew their cousin. That's my granddad. And we're connected from all different parts of the world, from England and now back into the Volta region of Ghana. And we're all sharing that respect together for my granddad. Such a beautiful moment to see the river there. Stunning scenery. And for my dad and the rest of the family, how much this meant. I can see it meant so much for my dad, who is accepted. We got this big white man right by the river with all of these Ghanaians there performing the libation ceremony together. Pakistani, white, Ghanaian, all unified to give love and respect to the man who raised us. A very, very deep and beautiful moment indeed. And going there, of course, them big smiles, taking selfies together, feeling that love, and then driving towards Dabala, which, I can't explain. The next part is just, it feels like a dream now, but I know it's real, and I know that it's essential, and I need to go back and maintain that connection, because we drove to Dabala and we saw the properties that my grandfather's family owned. We walked into a bank. First of all, we walk into a bank, and the name of the founder, inaugurated by Mr., my grandfather's father, the name is there in a plaque. So we're there taking photos. And the staff come out of the bank and say, "Hey, what are you doing? This is Africa. What are you doing? You cannot just come and do this." And And then, of course, I don't blame them. They were just doing their jobs. But once they found out whose family it was, all I'm going to say is the tune changed. That's what I'm going to say. But to go there and to see the police station that was owned by the family that I'd heard many stories of from my childhood, to see the bank, to see all of this, to see the houses, right? I remember my grandfather telling me, okay, we had one house here, which was right beside the mosque. And where my grandfather used to fast with the Muslims, where he used to also learn to read and write Arabic, where they also, as Christians, would celebrate Eid. I saw that mosque, I saw the houses, everything coming together in my mind and my eyes, just taking it all in. And then pulling up to one house and then seeing my cousin saying, oh, we're going to meet my grandma, and his grandma being my grandfather's younger sister. Not many words were exchanged. This wasn't like long flowing conversation, but sometimes just the silence, just that body language, everything we just spoke before even words were exchanged. There was just a feeling of like, wow, from her face looking exactly like him, but to her demeanor as well. And just so much emotion with both of us, of her telling us, wow. My brother was a very strong man. And we nod, and saying, and thanks to him, you have become very strong boys. You have become very strong men. For her to say that and look at us, and was powerful, so powerful. And I just felt like I should have gone earlier to give respect and pay respect to my granddad's family, but to feel that same energy that he had with her there, in my presence, the honor of that, so special. So special. And she just, looked at me and my brother and said, you need to tell the rest of the family to come home. And I just realized how important these moments are. This is family. These are the people that raised us. And to come home and give respect to them is so important. From, selfishly for me, what that did for me inside, all these kind of uncertainties, identity crisis and whatever of, Ghanaian, nah, this and that, whatever, all aside for a moment. This is my grandfather's sister. And to meet her was just surreal. Someone, it's 10 years since my grandfather's passed away, but to feel that same energy. And then to go and meet his younger brother was even another level because the face was the same. The face is the same. And just, again, it's like a look that he gives in his eye to my eyes, a look that I haven't felt since my grandfather passed. That same look, that same energy. These people support you so much, but there's so much deference that they command, so much respect that the elders command in Ghana. But it's purely out of love because they want you to be the best version of yourself possible. And to feel all of that in Ghana, in the village, in Dabala was just, I felt so charged but so humbled at the same time. Again, gratitude to people watching this channel for helping us make this happen. So going to the village and connecting with my family, it really just felt like something had been finally concluded. This was the final step of understanding my identity. I don't need to say that I am a Ghanaian, but obviously Ghana has impacted me so much. And then for me to then be there and experience that, I'm recharged, I'm reawakened as someone with just a more positive energy now because I understand where I come from. Maybe not physically, but spiritually and mentally. This is what molded me to see the school where my grandfather studied and where other family members, big respect to Uncle David, who taught me, who helped me smash my GCSEs. I saw the school where he was educated now. I know where he's from. Now when I see my family, I see them in a different way. I understand them. These are not stories now. These are memories that I've seen and recorded with my own brain. To then be in the country of Ghana after connecting and telling other Ghanaians, yes, I've been to Dabala recently, back to Accra now. I'm feeling charged. And to sit and eat fufu and peanut soup and groundnut soup together with my hands, with my brother, and see Ghanaians look at us and say, whoa, okay.
Yeah, you Ghanaian.
We go on some tours and this will be the next story. But to see maybe an African American who's not used to that style of eating and then just see us dive in, natural as ever, and say, and have my uncles teaching me some tree, teaching me some ewe, and connecting to that, eating jollof, eating fufu, eating stew in Ghana with my family. These are just, it's all coming together. It's all coming together. But food is a strange one. And again, I'll speak more about the negatives at the end because there were some ups and downs with that, to say the least. But I remember my granddad speaking about the fresh markets when I was a kid. And I had these images of the fresh fruit from Ghana because I remembered how happy he would be. Imagine in winter in England, he's talking about the fruit. And my oh my, the fresh produce in Ghana, that fruit, so sweet, so fresh. cannot imagine. To be there, to see the sea and have this fruit and share that with the family. Tesco, I'm sorry, but the supermarkets here, it doesn't feel the same after you come back, So, and again, how people, now to speak about specifically Ghanaian people, how did they treat me? Okay, I'm Obroni, but at the same time, we could quickly reverse that. So, imagine going to the Kwame Nkrumah Mausoleum. The stories my grandfather told me of being there at the Independence Day inaugural speech. Now I'm in this exact place where my grandfather witnessed the independence, the founding of Ghana, and I'm standing there in the same place with my family. Incredible. The history of Ghana, the history of my family in that moment, and seeing the young generation, school uniform, up discipline. They wouldn't dare have one toe out of line because I saw how the teachers were with them. And we were there fascinated to see, all of this history and learn about Pan-Africanism in the museum and see all of this, right? Again, my grandfather used to speak so much about Kwame Nkrumah, and he went to the LSE. And I'm coming there as a graduate from the LSE now, I'm taking this all in. And there was a sister there with a group of students with a hijab on. And all I said was, "Oh, assalamu alaikum, sister." Of course, she greeted wa alaikum salam. And she saw, "Oh, you don't have a guide. Of course, come, follow our group." So there, our family are following this group of students. And how powerful for us to see that they had no idea of our connection to Ghana. Maybe they just thought we're any old tourist, right? And I'm following, watching the kids' emotion, right? They're paying attention to every word, listening to their history. And they are Ghana's future, they are Ghana's future. The energy and the positive spirit of those kids just makes me pray. Ghana, with the right direction and the right support, these people can do anything. There's no limit. There's no limit to their potential. That's the same belief that was instilled within me from my Ghanaian family. And now I'm seeing these kids there. Afterwards, I was humbled. I'm thinking, wow, these kids are so well behaved. And another lady who was part of that group came up to us and said, "Well, these students here? Okay. These are not rich kids. These are mainly people taken, from the local community. It's like charity, taken from the street and given these opportunities to be educated." And, how humbling those moments are to witness that in front of me, someone who's been given education my whole life, and the value of education instilled within me from my Asian and African family. And now, again, humbly, firmly reminded how important this is, how grateful I am, but how important it is for this next generation across the world, in Ghana, but elsewhere. Education is the passport, to the future. And then just to say to that lady at the end there, thank you so much. Your kindness. Maybe you're meant to pay or organize a trip, a tour or something like that. We didn't. We just walked in. Just said, "You don't understand. You giving us that tour here is so important because this is where our grandfather and my dad, this is where my father spoke of and was however many years ago, 70 odd years ago now, in that exact space." And we heard the stories of him going there, probably celebrating too much with Uncle Nat. And now to be here and have that love and warmth of the Ghanaian people who had no idea who we were, right? And just took us along with us. Again, feeling comfortable in these tourist areas, the Black Star Square. A lot of people would come and try and sell us things, but then this is where I really became my granddad and my brother as well. And we would just, switch. They see an Obroni, they see a tourist, they're going to try and sell a lot of stuff to you. And I don't blame them, but it can be quite overwhelming, especially for my parents, if you're not used to that kind of crowds of people coming up and trying to sell you things. And we would just turn into my granddad and say, "Hey, I do not want to buy anything. Leave me alone. Why are you trying to sell this? I am Ghanaian." And in that moment, them, oh, I'm sorry, they're Ghanaian. Are you Lebanese? You are Lebanese. All of in these moments. And gradually, getting off the plane, wearing shirts and t-shirts and whatever, and then starting to wear my grandfather's robes. I'm buying some local robes and just feeling like I'm comfortable. I am comfortable. I am home. So that's one thing. Yeah, the Lebanese community has been in Ghana. I'm not so knowledgeable about the entire history of that, but all I know is that there are quite a lot of people who look more similar to me who are Ghanaian. They are Lebanese Ghanaian. and people would assume that I am one of them, right? So if I would just turn on the accent and just tell people, hey, I do not want to buy anything. I'm fine. I do not need to buy it. Please, have some respect. He's Lebanese, he's Ghanaian, he's Ghanaian. That was interesting for me to find that actually based on even physically, I didn't actually stick out. And that comfort feels nice when you've been raised very hyper-conscious. Now, this is very applicable to African Americans. This is very applicable to people in Europe, for example, who are black. But also as a Pakistani man, I've always felt that kind of sensitivity in America and in Europe of I'm different, I need to be careful. I'm in the shop, depending on what I'm wearing, depending on how big my beard is, depending on how ethnic I'm looking, there's going to be a lot of scrutiny on me. And in Ghana, I don't know if you call this whatever privilege, I don't know if this is white privilege or whatever, but looking around and not feeling any of that was a liberation. Walking into the supermarket and just not feeling like, I need to be extra careful. The security are looking at me. Even as a non-physically black person, it just feels nice to sit somewhere, not have to constantly check my pockets and look at my bag. Because going back to this question about danger or not, I didn't feel danger in Ghana. I can't speak for the whole continent of Africa. I'm talking about Ghana, in Accra. I did not feel any danger. That's just a beautiful feeling to sit in a cafe, to sit in a restaurant, to go around and not feel like I'm being hunted, not feel like my pockets need to be checked every 5 seconds constantly. And not feel like I'm being judged constantly for looking different. Even though I do look different to the majority of people out there. That's that hospitality. That's that true Ghanaian respect. That people were conscious to not make me feel uncomfortable. I think we can all learn a lot from that. When there's a guest, it's our responsibility to treat that guest with respect, no matter where they are from. So one of the deeper parts of the trip was my brother and I did a day excursion to Cape Coast. I'd seen a lot of people online go there, especially African Americans, and it's a very deep, painful thing for, I think, anyone, but especially someone who has, historical connection to that. And we went on that trip with an amazing Ghanaian guide, and an African American sister was also there with us. So, a lot of conversations back and forth, because my brother and I, we don't look typically black, but culturally we are very Ghanaian in our awareness and influences. So to go there and hear the stories and see with our own eyes the buildings, to go inside the dungeons where the slaves were kept.
600 males were kept in these dungeons. When you look at the slanted wall, we have this. There's another one over there. They are called buttresses, which was added by the Dutch to hold and strengthen the walls of the castle. And the metal on it were added by the British.
And hear about the dark and graphic and explicit stories of how the mixed race individuals came about and how they were then used in the hierarchies, the brutal treatment of humans was very difficult to hear, but I think essential. And in that moment, I just thought, like, if every Brit was aware and I could see this history in front of them, how we would see each other would be very different. It would be very different indeed. And I realized in that moment, knowledge is power, history. You don't need to be Ghanaian. You don't need to be African American. Every person should seek knowledge and understand the dark parts of our histories as well, in order to understand each other better, why we are like this, where our people come from. So in that moment, I would say, anyone, this is part of British history as well. But so well said in the museum, the National Museum of Accra, slavery is not our history. It interrupted our heritage. And you will feel that there's a strong identity in Ghana of, no, this is not us. This happened, of course, we understand it happened, but this is not Ghanaianness, right? Their history is the different tribes, the Ashantis, the Airways, the Akans, all of this beauty that, of course, is made up on this flag with the black star. But it's such a layered culture, right? Within this one country, there are origins of people from many different places who look different in the north, who speak so many different languages. That is the beauty of Africa and the beauty of Ghana. And so for people who aren't really sure about whether or not they should visit Ghana, something I need to say is Ghanaian hospitality is top notch, world class. The way that people will speak to you, the politeness that you're going to hear, the yes please, the no please, when you go into any kind of establishment, in general, they're just warm people. Again, going against all the stereotypes in the Western media we've heard about black people are this and this and that. You have to make sure when you go to Ghana, you delete all of those, because it is a completely different culture to any culture that I've seen presented about Africa or black people in the West. Thailand is land of the smiles. Ghana also, the amount of smiles and respect from people now. It's not everyone though. Of course, there were some grumpy people who reminded me of some grumpy Ghanaians I've met in the past. But overall, smiles, respect by the grace of God. You're getting that everywhere. You're getting that level of respect. Now, for anyone who is on the fence, as I said, about visiting Ghana, you definitely have to go and experience that. It will blow your mind. Again, like I said, people, after I got back, Ghana, are you sure? Are you sure it wasn't so dangerous? And I'm saying, look, I feel safer in Accra than London. That is not an understatement or like an over-exaggeration or whatever. I genuinely felt safer in Accra than London. So many positives to see. There are nice restaurants. There are beautiful views in nature and sitting by the sea and enjoying that. It is nice. However, I will end this video. The last section I want to say is I'm going to be honest. There's a romanticization of places and motherland in certain cultures and communities. And if I did that and I only gave you the good without the bad, then I wouldn't really be representing Ghana. I'll be being biased. So I've spoken about the good, what it did for me, the spirit of the people. Number one, how driven they are and diligent, and how I know with the right guidance, those kids right there with the education can change the world and change Ghana. That's the, thing I need to say first. But then the challenges are real. Infrastructure in a few certain areas is good, and you'll see those online, but there are a lot of challenges. And these were what the Ghanaians themselves were telling me. While we're going on the tours, the roads at some points are very disjointed, are very unstable. Things are started and then stopped. And you notice that when traveling across the country, you're up and down. And really, the infrastructure is inconsistent, to say the least. And I pray and hope that people can come together, make the right investments. Because with those investments and guidance, as I said, the country's potential is limitless. But I'm saying it how it is, right? These problems are there. And a big shout out to Eme, and her video on the channel will be up by now, who is from Ghana Food Movement. Because another key area that hurts me to say, from someone who grew up eating delicious Ghanaian food as a kid, from my childhood, some of the food I tasted in Ghana, and Eme, our conversation touches on this, is that it's nothing to do with the cuisine itself, it's the produce, right? That why in Ghana am I eating a chicken that has been imported from Brazil? And why am I eating rice that has been imported from Vietnam? Nothing to do with the flavors, nothing to do with that, but it's the freshness that I could taste and just say, okay, something is a bit off here, because Grandad's food was relatively fresher. But depending on where I went, the levels were up and down. There were some places that I tasted the food, I was in food heaven. The food was incredible. I just wanted to eat as much as I could and I couldn't stop myself. And then other times I was there and thinking, this does not taste so fresh. Even though you're in a so-called relatively fancier establishment, but you can just taste that, and real support to Ghana Food Movement and what they're showing people, because with the food itself, the cuisine is so rich. You have these different regions and different dishes, and people are so proud, but the people, I feel, are getting a disservice by having to consume food that is not actually produced locally. That is not the fault of the locals. That is a supply chain issue, and I really pray and hope that people can do more so Ghanaian people can consume food that is there in the richness of their own land. Aside from that, the cuisine is just, it's so delicious. When they're preparing that fufu fresh and the ingredients are there, man, that food is special. That food is not just food for your mouth, it's food for your soul. And when you share that together with people, it's one of the most beautiful moments to sit with my brother, with my family, and eat that food with your hands together and share that. So I feel like I had to mention that. Otherwise, I'm disrespecting Ghanaians to not say Ghanaians deserve better. And another thing I will say is that 99% of people who treated us as an Obroni or Lebanese Ghanaian or whatever they thought I was, the treatment was so beautiful and with so much respect and love. I can feel it. It's a very loving country. However, there were a couple times where people did try to scam us. And I will say this for anyone coming from abroad, there is a certain distance between some locals, and I understand why, but when they see people coming from the West, they see African American as just rich. They will see anyone from the UK as just rich. And some people will see that as an opportunity to extort and try and rip off because they just want to do what they can to support their families. I get that. But as someone coming from abroad, you need to be aware of those things and something to do with the accommodation. I don't need to go into big details, but it was resolved through Airbnb. They were asking us over a small discrepancy to pay £1,500 and many voice notes saying, you are very aggressive people. You have come to Ghana to destroy the accommodation and you have done this and that. Very kind of like intimidating messages. And some of the people and staff were trying to intimidate us as outsiders. And luckily, after the whole resolution was done through Airbnb, it went from £1,500 to £50. So luckily, again, we might look like outsiders, but hey, inside I'm Ghanaian. I'm sorry, but I'm not going to do you think anyone would have let my grandfather been scammed? So what makes you think I'm going to come to Accra and be scammed? And I think that switch would get certain people where they'd hear the British accent, okay, this is just a sitting duck. But I am Ghanaian. And Grandad lives inside of me and my brother, where we can just switch it on and we don't take any, I don't even need to say it, but you understand. You have to respect yourself. Respect for others starts with self-respect. And once you have that respect for yourself, then you can respect others and make sure that overall, as I said, there was a great sense of community and sharing and love. But of course, anyway, this is not just for Ghana. I'm just sharing my experiences. These were a couple of the things, the infrastructure, the unfortunate reality of production and supply chains of food, and then a couple of opportunistic people trying to scam a couple of Obronis. But apart from that, right, I've been honest, the impact Ghana had on my heart more than anything is something I'm eternally grateful, not just to my family, but the entire country, because it's made me who I am today. I represent this flag with a lot of pride and love because it is the flag that pushed me from a tough time in my childhood where I had my own identity crisis, where I didn't believe in myself. These values here of my granddad saying, don't do it for your teachers. Ignore them. The teachers, if they are racist, don't listen to them. Do it for yourself. And to go there and have this flag now, all of this is just a big thank you to Ghana for the people, for the vibes, for a place that I have really no place. It shouldn't be that I can go there and feel at home, but whatever this reality in this world is that I can. And I do feel loved there. And I do feel extremely grateful and privileged to go to this wonderful country and experience some of that. And it doesn't take long for people to mirror that and feel that when we're there and we speak to certain people, people will come when we're dancing Highlife with my cousins there. People come up and shake your hand. Oh, where are you visiting from? The UK, but my granddad was from Ghana. Hey, they're happy. They want to talk to you. They want to experience. They want to know, and it's not you're a foreigner. It's an appreciation of you because they can feel my appreciation to them. There's a mutual understanding and it's just a positive feeling all around. And to go and again, ignore what the media says and see the great work that my aunt is doing in the community, sports for young people, education for young people, bring it together to see the dignity and the intelligence, the bilingualism of the young generation of my young cousin. To be honest, I want to end on this of how impressed I am with the young people. Of course, where does that come from? It's a trickle down, right? But to see those young members of my family and beyond, the respect they have. Et le fait qu'ils parlent français, ils sont vraiment jeunes. Ils sont déjà bilingues. They're bilingual from a young age. They've been taught French. They've been taught English. They're more than bilingue. They're speaking Twi. They're speaking their other languages. It's a multilingual country. And we struggle to learn another language. I love Evolve. We're bigging up these linguists, but so many people in Ghana are polyglots. They don't even know, they don't even think of the word polyglot in their life. Even my grandfather's younger brother, when we went to see him, our uncles are saying, oh, make sure you speak refined, good English when you speak with him. Because I know the young generation now, they got their pidgin. But my granddad's generation, they weren't speaking pidgin. They went to school in that colonial era and post-colonial independence, and they learned, I don't want to say the Queen's English, but a very refined English that to this day, the elders in my family still speak. So that's the beauty of West Africa, is you've got these different languages. You've got the pidgin, and I got love for pidgin. There's specifically some YouTubers we've been watching who the way they speak is so cool. It's infectious. And I want to start speaking like them. They've got a very, very distinctive way of speaking. However, when speaking to the elders of my family, it is a refined English, but then they break into Tree, then they break into Ewe, then they break into Ga. It's just so impressive for someone who grew up monolingual to witness this seamlessly changing in front of me. As a linguist and as someone who's interested in culture, going to Ghana and seeing that you've got all these different tribes and languages, the British influence at one point, meaning that you can travel there as an outsider. And, some countries in the world, if the level of English might not be that high. The level of English I was hearing, but the switch from they can speak to me in this kind of refined English, but then go into pidgin and ping pong, bouncing between language and dialect of pidgin and standard English and refined English. You're going to be scratching your head at some point if you're not used to it, but for them it's just completely normal. C'est impressionnant de voir ça devant mes yeux et d'entendre tout ça. It was incredible. You're next to Togo, they're in the Volta region. And then when I'm there, some of my family are bantering and telling me, hey, merci, merci. They don't even know that I can speak French, but they're so close to the French-speaking Togo, it all blends in together. I remember my granddad saying at a young age, out of nowhere, he would just say, parlez-vous français? Because these are multilingual people from a very young age. I guess this video has been a tribute to Ghana, a tribute to what this country has done to me. The good, the bad, the emotional, but the message now for the future generations is I hope as people together, we can all come together, share our resources, share our spirit, because those people in Ghana, those young kids that I saw at the Kwame Nkrumah Mausoleum, with the right guidance, with the right direction, with the right opportunities, the world is theirs, the world is ours. We can come together and build a better future for everyone. May that sing. Whew. Thanks for watching, guys. I really appreciate this. It was a deep one for me. Make sure if you did enjoy this, hit the like button, subscribe, as it helps us to make more content, travel to more places, bring more people together. And of course, let us know where you're viewing from. Let us know what you think. Tell me, am I wrong about Ghana? Am I right? Let us know everything in the comments. But until next time, may that say, thank you very much, and we'll see you on the next one.